Hey, what's going on, beautiful jellyfish? It's Tracy. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time in your day to hang out with me. I really appreciate it. In today's video, I'm going to be doing my updated Riku deck tech. Now, I had actually filmed this about a year or so ago, and normally I wait until 2 years to give myself a lot of time to acquire new cards, change the deck, make it better, etc., etc. But the reality of the situation is this deck's changed quite a bit from its original theming, and I really wanted to talk to you guys about this deck because it's like my new baby. Like Tassiger's like my OG, you know, like my OG love, my foil out, all that stuff. Like the full deck is foiled, and this is like my second in command. You know, my friends are really scared of this deck, which, you know, is funny, and you know, it's really cool. I really like this deck a lot. It's very different from all my other decks, which I really like. And I think that's kind of like one of my reasons where, like, for me, I've had such a hard time building decks after this, because I built Tamishi after this, and that also feels very similar to how I feel about this deck, where it's like, it's very different, it's very powerful, which I really like, because I just think the power level has just gone up a lot in my playgroup, and I've talked about this before with power creep and stuff like that. So basically, the original point of this deck was about clones. It was about Biovisionary was one of the win conditions. It was about cloning other people's stuff, and I've taken out all of the clones at this point. That's not the point of the deck. I have a ton of mana acceleration in here. I have one infinite combo, I believe. Yes. We've got taking extra turns in here. We've just got mass copying shenanigans. This deck is incredibly silly but incredibly powerful. I really love this. If you're considering building a Riku deck, I would definitely recommend it. I will say I do think that this is one of those decks where, like, you can definitely build this deck budget, and I'm not here to say that you have to spend a ton of money, but for me, a lot of these really good key pieces do make this deck significantly better, and I feel like it's a deck that you could very easily put money into, and like the deck would just be really incredible. I might challenge myself one day to make a budget build of this deck just to post for you guys to see what I can come up with, but because, like, you can definitely still do really powerful things with Riku, because casting a spell once is already pretty great, and then when you get to cast it multiple times, I think one of the best things I've done in this deck is I had Stormkiln Artist, which we'll talk about when we get to creatures, and I had about, like, I want to say 7 copies of them, I think. I think I had Rite of Replication, which I actually don't have Rite of Replication in here because I don't have a ton of creatures. I definitely could put Rite of Replication back in here, and maybe I will. But my whole thing is really just about control, copying silly things. It's really fun. You guys will see it, and I hope that you guys enjoy this deck as much as I do. That was a really long introduction to this, but I really hope you guys like it. Let's just jump on into it. I don't know if I mentioned this, but the deck will be listed in the down bar below. 35 lands, that's the way to go. This is how I've broken it up for my basics. I've got 5 mountains. By the way, these are my personal favorite. They're beautiful. Absolutely stunning. I've got 7 islands. And I have 6 forests. Okay, the first one I have is Alchemist Refuge. I love this. I absolutely love having Flash. And this is one of the cards that helps get me there. So gotta have me some Alchemist Refuge in this deck. Oh, I will say too, this mana base is a little bit weird. I don't have all the pieces that I need. So yeah, things are like a little bit weird. So don't kind of like mind that. I have, first off, Botanical Sanctum. I don't have any of the other lands in this cycle. I do need to tweak a couple of the of these lands because I'm not like super happy with some of these specialty lands, so this is probably going to come out at some point, mainly because I want the type, you know what I'm saying, I want it on there. So then I have, let me grab all of my shocklands because I believe I have all of them. Yes, I do have all of them. So I've got Breeding Pool, I've got Steam Vents, and Stomping Ground, of course, gotta have those. Next up, we have Command Tower, of course, gotta have that. I've got 2 of these cash lands is what I believe they're coined as, but I've got 2 of those, honestly, because we opened up quite a bit of Modern Horizons, and I just had these laying around. I don't know if these are still expensive, but anyways, I love this art on Fire Islet. I think it's really pretty. I do like these. I know they don't have that land type, but I actually do really like those lands. They're really good if you've got nothing else going on. I've got this Tri-land. I actually don't have the other Tri-land. It's on my wish list. I'm really hoping to acquire that soon, the one that's got all the types on there, but I have that one in there. Then I have Ghost Quarter. I do always love to have at least one land destruction card. I'm not over here trying to play 7, but I always like to have 1 or 2. Mirror Pool this card is really cool. It was so funny. I was like looking at, for foiling out the rest of this deck, I was looking at like what costs of things. This is actually really expensive in foil. It's not a card that you might think would be expensive. So you can sacrifice it to copy instant or sorcery spell, which is really cool. And then for 4, you can sack it to put a token that's a copy of target creature you control. My thought is actually I would probably really only be doing the first one because I do run a lot of instants and sorceries in this deck. And like I said, I run a handful of creatures, but that's not to say that I won't. I don't think I've ever drawn this card before. If so, I've drawn it once and I've never actually copied it. But hopefully one day I will get this and I will get it off and it will be really cool. That card is very good. Okay, let's talk about, I actually only have 2 of the fetch lands in here. I don't know why I'm missing the, let's see, red-green Wooded Foothills. I don't know why I'm missing that one. I think actually the reason isn't so funny because we had a lot of these left over from when we played Modern because Paul had a red-green and I believe he had a playset of those, but they're all in other commander decks and we just didn't have an extra one. And I think I'm waiting on the playset of these to match because I'm kind of big on that, like, with my decks. I try to get things like that match and stuff like that. So hopefully those will come out soon because I really want to get that. But yeah, it's okay. Then I have Myriad Landscape, which I really like this card. It is only of the same type. So for example, I couldn't get like a forest and a mountain, which is a little bit of a bummer, but I still do really like this card a lot. I have Reliquary Tower because, drawing cards is the name of the game and I do that a lot. This is kind of one of those lands that I'll probably take out Rootbound Crag. I don't really know what I want to do for the rest of the land cycles other than get that Tri-land that I mentioned earlier. And similarly to that, I would like to take out this Temple of Epiphany because I just feel like I really don't have time for lands that, a lot of lands that enter the battlefield tapped. And this is just something that I feel like I can take out and put something better in. So anyways, let's just jump into now artifacts. Now artifacts are usually, I go through them pretty quickly because a lot of them is mana acceleration. Case in point, Arcane Signet. This is my personal favorite mana acceleration to run in 2+ color decks. I love this card. Chromatic Lantern, an absolute necessity in this deck. Darksteel Plate. Now I have recently gone through and I've put 3 additional cards to protect Riku. And let me tell you, if you plan on building Riku, regardless if you're building budget or not, people will kill him and you need to stop it. So I have a total of 5, I believe, ways to protect Riku in this deck that are not like counter spells and things like that. I need to protect Riku in this deck because he is so heavily targeted. So I have put a lot of those in there and we will talk about those when we get to it. But I love Darksteel Plate. I also love the fact that this is indestructible. So you can't destroy this with one of the many things. So you have to exile it. So, love this card. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and grab the other one too. I have the full set of the Signets, which are some of my favorite mana acceleration cards in the game. And these are the ones from the Secret Lair. There they are, all nice and pretty. Then I have Lightning Greaves, and I'm just going to go ahead and talk about Swiftfoot Boots because they are identical. Yeah, these cards are great. I very similarly to that, I have Mask of Avacyn. So this is nope, this is not the final card that protects Riku. I can also throw some other creatures too, but the main point is I'm probably going to be using this to target Riku. And funny story, this foil is actually more expensive than you might think. This foil is about $4 or $5, which is pretty crazy, but look at that. How beautiful is that? It's a great card. I love how it's like darker, like over here, if you can see that. This card is stunning. Not a whole lot to say here. Soul Ring, I've got Spellbook because like I mentioned, we draw a lot of cards in or I draw a lot of cards in this game, so need that. I have 2 out of the 3 talisman cards. I would very much like to get the third one. These were printed very similarly to the fetch lands. These were printed in Modern Horizons 2017, and again, like I mentioned, I like things to match, but they only printed out 5 of those. I don't know if they had plans to like eventually come out with Modern Horizons 3, I guess that would be. And then I don't know if that got delayed or what happened. I'm really crossing my fingers that this is the year 2023 that we get the other Modern Horizons or whatever, so we can get the remaining cycle of these and those shocklands or those fetch lands. Anybody else? I'm hoping for those, but I love these. Okay, then I have Thought Vessel. I think we've got a total of 3 cards that have no maximum hand size because we need that. And the last one that I have, oh, I'm sorry, nope, we've got more cards, sorry. I've got Twinning Staff. If you're building Riku, I definitely recommend having this because you can copy, you get an additional copy, which is incredibly cool. And then for 7, I've actually never done that because 7 is kind of a lot of mana to do. But if you have nothing going on and you just want to use that, absolutely, you can 1000% do that, copy your things. Love it. Vidalcan Ori, because it's my favorite artifact and this is my personal favorite art. It's stunning. Then I have Whisper Silk Cloak as the 5th card in here that will help me protect Riku. Love Whisper Silk Cloak. The can't be blocked. I'm not trying to kill Boo with Riku. Like that's not the name of the game. We're not doing that, friends. Okay, let's jump into enchantments. I only have 4. The first one is Double Vision. When you're looking at this card, you might think, Tracy, 5 mana is a lot, and I'm not going to sit here and disagree with you. However, my personal favorite thing to do with this card is play it on my turn. It goes around, and then I'm casting an instant, or if I have one of the 3 ways to give myself Flash, Alchemist Refuge, Vidalcan Ori, and Leyline of Anticipation, which we will talk about in a second, I am able to cast, my things, and then I'm able to copy them and choose new targets. It's kind of a lot of mana, and to be honest with you, some people, when you lay this down, might be like, that doesn't seem super great, and if you're casting a spell on everyone's turn, you're winning. It's great. I mentioned previously that I have Flash, and this is another way to give me it, Leyline of Anticipation. 1000% have had this in my opening hand and have not played it and realized it after my turn 1 started, so don't make that mistake, friends. Be a better Magic player than me, Omniscience, because it's the name of the game, and here we are. And we've got the Splinter Twin combo, because to be honest with you guys, it's one of the easiest combos in this deck. However, I believe I lied to you a little bit and said that it was the only win condition in this deck. That is actually not true, and we will talk about in a second what the other win condition is when we get to it. But Splinter Twin is one of the win conditions. It's very easy. It's a 2-card combo. Gotta love it. Make 1,000,001 tokens and kill everybody. It's great. Okay, let's dive into the creatures. We've got some good stuff in here. The first one we have is Arcumancer. I really love Arcumancer a lot. You bounce your instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand, and you're left with a 1/2, which you kind of do need some blockers in here. And now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like I might want to throw a propaganda in here because, like I said, I don't have a ton of creatures, and I can be kind of susceptible to like big swarms of things, Then I have, this card is really cool, and that is Archmage Amitrius. A lot of people don't know this card, but it's really cool. It says whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card. This is actually really cool too if you're not doing copies. If you're just playing blue and you're drawing a lot of cards, it's really not that bad. It's a 4-mana 2/2, and whenever you draw a card, you just, whenever you cast it cast or copy, you just get to draw a card. It's a cool card. Then I have this really cool Spanish Birds of Paradise foil. Come on, how cool is this, guys? I love this. Really cute. Not a whole lot to say. It's a birds, Coiling Oracle, or Coracle, whatever. This card is really cool. ETB is reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land, you put it on the battlefield. Otherwise, you put it in your hand. It's like, this card just says either draw a card or put a land onto the battlefield. You want to accelerate a lot, and you'll see that when we get to the sorceries. The whole goal is you want to accelerate a lot so you can cast all your stuff, because you need a lot of mana in this deck, because you want to be able to cast Riku, copy off of him, all that stuff. We talked about earlier the Splinter Twin card, and this is the combo with it. I do not run Pestermite in this deck. I just have Deceiver X art. Okay, then we have one of my personal favorite little acceleration cards, that is Dryad of the Elysian Grove. You may play additional lands, and lands are every basic land type, which is great because you need colors in this deck. You're very color sensitive. You want to make sure that you have your red mana, your blue mana, your green mana, because you want to be able to copy your things and cast your stuff. So yeah. Then next up we have Dualcaster Mage. I love Dualcaster Mage. This card is really, really cool. Oh, and another thing that I actually wanted to let you guys know of, which is really cool, is one of my, and you guys can let me know if this is incorrect, but to my understanding, this is how it works, is that let's just say you go to cast something, right? Like you go to draw a card or something like that, and someone counters it, you can copy it in response with like Riku or something like Dualcaster Mage, and you still get the copy. So your deck is really hard to stop you from casting spells because you're just going to do your whole thing. Dualcaster Mage is really cool. It basically is Riku like on a stick, you know, and then after it does its thing, you're left with the tutu. It's cool. I like it. Okay, next up we have Eternal Witness. Wanted a little bit of recursion. There's not a ton in here. I think I have this and then maybe 2 other cards, so 3 cards in total that have that little bit of recursion. That's not really the name of the game here, but you know, this is really cool to get back, you know, your super big draw spell thing or whatever it is that you need. And the fact that you can copy this with Riku means that you can get an additional thing back, which is awesome. Love this card. Next up, we have Goblin Electromancer. I love this card. I think it's really, really cool. Instant sorcery spells cost you 1 less to cast. There's really not like a whole lot to say here with this card, but I really enjoy it. We've got a lot of instant sorcery spells, and having them be cheaper is great. Love this card. Harmonic Prodigy is really, really cool. It has prowess, which potentially might be relevant, but it's 2 mana for a 1/3, and it basically gives you an additional Riku trigger for them. You know, that's what it does. So this is very similar to a card like Twinning Staff. But what I really like about Harmonic Prodigy is you could copy this with Riku, and you could get an additional Harmonic Prodigy, which is cool. So one of our biggest mana spells, we've been talking a lot on the cheaper end of our stuff, but we've got our Jin-Gitaxias. This is the second Jin-Gitaxias. It's not the OG Progress Tyrant. This one is whenever you cast an artifact, instant, or sorcery, you just copy it. You don't have to pay. That's not the name of the game here. You just copy it. You may choose new targets. Now, it only triggers once each turn, so you cannot keep doing this on your turn, but hypothetically what you can do is play Jin-Gitaxias, play your instant sorcery or whatever it is on your turn, have it go to your opponent's turn, cast something else, etc., etc. And whenever an opponent casts an artifact or sorcery, you counter it. It only triggers once, so they basically have to pay 2 things to remove this or do anything. So they basically need 2 instants, 2 sorceries, 2 artifacts, which makes it really, really hard to kill. Because if somebody has, like, let's just say a Path to Exile and they want to get rid of Jin-Gitaxias, guess what? They can't. They need another way to deal with it, which is great. I love Jin-Gitaxias. Every time I get this out, people are like, not happy. Oracle of Moldiah, because like I mentioned, getting our lands, getting our acceleration is very, very important, and Oracle of Moldiah helps us get there. Love this card. It's one of my personal favorite green cards. I've got Sakura Tribuilder, aka Steve. Gotta have him. We're probably not copying this if we're playing this pretty early on in the game. We don't have Riku yet, but that's okay. We need our lands. And then we have Seedborn Muse. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this is my favorite green creature. This and Oracle are really up there. And Eternal Witness, I love all of those cards. But I really love Seedborn Muse a lot. You untap all your things, it's great. Casting all the stuff with Riku, this card's amazing. Then we have Storm Kiln Artist. I talked about this card earlier, and I really love it. Whenever you cast or copy an instant sorcery spell, you get a treasure. You can get out of hand so incredibly quickly with this card. You can copy this with Riku, you can make all the things, all the treasures, and you're going to just be able to cast all your stuff. I love this card. I am not a red mage, you guys know, but this is one of my favorite red cards. It's great. And the last creature we have, and we've talked about the things that are very similar to this, is Veyran, Voice of Duality. I'm not sure how to say that, but this is very similar to other things we've talked about, like Twinning Staff and Harmonic Prodigy. So it does have Magecraft. But if casting or copying an instant sorcery spell causes a triggered ability, it triggers an additional time. So getting a chance to do Riku again is really, really cool. So yeah, great card. Okay. Let's dive into the fun stuff, the instants and the sorceries. So we're going to start with the sorceries first. And first up, we have the second win condition. I guess your other win condition could be beat down with creatures, but you know, these creatures are not really, that's not really what they're there to do, you know. But anyways, Banefire. Banefire can kill people, and really funny about this card is that it can't be countered if it's X or more, which it's probably going to be X or more because you're probably going to be doing this for more amounts of mana so you can kill someone. The other really, really awesome thing with Banefire is, let's just say you've got 2 opponents left and they're both at very low life totals. You can Banefire, copy it with Riku for only 2 mana, and then you can just, kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and kill both of your opponents in the same turn. Banefire is really, really cool, very underplayed, and it's definitely a win condition. It's also, I believe, a very inexpensive card too. We're going to be talking a lot about, in our sorcery department, we're going to be talking a lot about mana acceleration, and Cultivate is one of the things that's going to help us get there. Similar to that, we have Kodama's Reach. These are the same thing. They're really, really cool. This is my personal favorite Cultivate art. I think it's very pretty. Expropriate. I love this card. So here's the really, really funny thing about Expropriate. Well, there's a lot of funny things about it. Casting Expropriate once is already really dumb, and then copying it is even dumber. So basically, it is a lot of mana, and I just want to note that you also do exile it, so you cannot be getting this back, which honestly, that's a good thing because this card's already very busted. So Council's Dilemma, everyone votes for either time or money, so you can either take extra turns or you can gain control of the permanent they own. Now, the really cool thing, there's many cool things about this card. The first thing is you're going to vote for extra turns for the most part, because the very likely thing that your opponents are going to do is have them take control of permanents. Now, I managed to play this at one time and I copied it, and I don't know if I copied it again, so I got a total of 3 copies, or if it was just 2. I want to say it was 3 though. And then I had, my opponents, and so I got like 7 extra turns, and I must have copied it more than, it had to be like at least 3 times or whatever. Anyways, the other really cool thing too about this card is it is permanent. So if they don't have anything going on, you can just basically steal their lands and, all that sort of stuff. So this card is busted. I love it. Fade into Antiquity is one of my favorite green ways of getting rid of artifacts and enchantments. I don't have Crow's Verge in this deck. Perhaps I should pick that up. I like having both. I like this because it is exile. It is sorcery, but that's okay. Great card. I'm gonna kind of talk about a lot of these together because they're like really similar. We've got Farseek, we've got Nature's Lore, we've got 3 Visits in Sylvan Scrying. These are all basically like the same thing. I guess Sylvan Scrying's a little different because it goes to your hand, but these are forests, they enter the battlefield, and then this one you can search for anything, basically enters the battlefield tapped. These are all really, really good. They're 2 mana, they're really, really cheap, and we need that because we need to get our lands, so. That next up, we have Plea for Power. This kind of reminds me of Expropriate a little bit, but it's kind of like a mini Expropriate. A lot of people say it's not as good, and it's definitely not as good, but this card is still really cool. So we either vote for Time or Knowledge, and if Time gets more votes, you get to take an extra turn. If Knowledge gets more votes or is tied, you get to draw 3 cards. So my personal favorite thing to do with this is you're probably not going to get the extra turn, but honestly, that's fine because the fact that you can draw 3 cards off of this, copy this with Riku, you're now up to 6 cards. If you've got double vision or whatever, now we're drawing 9 cards. It gets out of hand, and still looking at it like this, it's 4 mana to now draw 6 cards. That's pretty ridiculous, so yeah. Rampant Growth. Pretty basic, not a whole lot to say there. I guess I could have talked about this with the other cards because it's very similar. Next up, we got Regrowth because, getting back any of our things really seems very good. I love Regrowth. It's very, very good. Solve the Equation is a newer card to me, so I've not gotten the chance to play around with this much yet, but I do really enjoy this card. You get to tutor for an instant or sorcery, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Copying this with Riku means that you get a second thing. All around, it's a great card. We love it. Time Warp is our main source of drawing of taking extra turns. My personal favorite thing to do is probably like Time Warp, copy it with Riku. If we get another copy off of it, hey, that's super great. But then even getting 2 extra turns is really detrimental. And then potentially getting this back with our Eternal Witness or our Regrowth that we just talked about. And then, just taking a bunch of extra turns. Sounds good to me. I love it. And the last sorcery we have is Treasure Cruise. Love me some Treasure Cruise. Drawing 3 cards for 1 mana is pretty great. Love it. And copying with Riku means that we get to draw 6 cards. Love it. Okay, last up we have our... Sorry, I don't know what Paul just dropped. Next up we have our instants. We're starting things off with the Blue Sun Zenith, which is my favorite blue instant. I love Blue Sun Zenith. I know a lot of people would be shocked to hear that because I also do really love Cyclonic Rift. And Cyclonic Rift does seem like a more obvious choice, but I love Blue Sun Zenith because I get to draw X cards. That triple blue is not a problem. We've got blue represented so much and we've got so much acceleration that that's not an issue at all. We do this, we get it with Riku, you know. I've drawn dumb amounts of cards off of this card with copying with Riku. You know, we're up to, you know, we drew 7 cards, but now it's doubled and now we get 14 cards, you know, whatever. Just incredibly ridiculous things. I love this. And you get to shuffle it back, which means that there's a good chance that you'll draw it again. Love it. Speaking of drawing cards, we've got Brainstorm, one of my personal favorite ways to draw cards. Love Brainstorm. Counter Spell. We actually only have 2 counter spells in this deck, which actually might surprise you. Like, you might think that we would have more, but you know. Counterspell, it's classic. I mentioned earlier Cyclonic Rift, and of course we have Cyclonic Rift in this deck because how could we not? It's one of the things that we're going to do to stop our opponents from killing us, because this deck can be a little bit of, you know, a little fragile. You know, we need a way to stop that. I think Paul is wrapping presents right now is what I think is happening. Okay, next up we've got is Dig Through Time. Love Dig Through Time. If I could make a list to you of like my top 5 favorite blue cards, Dig Through Time is definitely there. Absolutely. Along with Cyclonic Rift and Blue Sun Zenith. I love and Treasure Cruise. I love Dig Through Time. I think this card is incredible for basically 2 mana. You know, we're going to delve away. We have a little bit of recursion, but not a ton. You know, we've got our 2 ways, and then we can copy that absolutely, so we could get multiple things back. But we're probably going to delve away some of that stuff that we don't necessarily need or we don't want back or whatever it is, just so we can get this card off. And then, you know, the fact that you can copy this with Riku, like, that's the thing too that I think you need to consider is, well, again, a lot of these cards, like this card's already good, and then you think about it like this, you copy this with Riku, and then you get to see 14 cards. 14 cards of your deck, and that's only to say if you're copying it just with Riku, and we have a couple ways to copy it more than once, so, or like more than 2 times, yeah. I'm sorry, I did lie to you. I actually have 3 counterspells in this deck, and one of them is Disdainful Stroke. I just had a bunch of these lying around from a friend, so running this card hits a lot of things. Fact or Fiction. I've been talking about this card a lot recently. I love Fact or Fiction. I just think it's a really good card. Copying this as well too, when you think about it, you get to see now 10 cards. You're accessing 10 cards, and then the rest go back into the graveyard, which we might have a way to get back, we might not, but here we go. Love Fact or Fiction. Then I have Mana Drain, which is definitely like my favorite counter spell. One of my favorite things to do with Mana Drain is to counter something and then have all that extra mana and then put it into like Blue Sun Zenith or something like that. Yeah. Okay, next up we have Opt. I think this card is really cool. Very basic, not a whole lot to say. You scry 1, you draw a card, it's 1 mana. Great card. I have Rapid Hybridization. I do not have Pognify. I actually don't have an extra one, which is why I don't have the other one, but I really love Rapid Hybridization. I'm also just realizing now that I don't have Curse of the Swine in this deck too, and I need to fix that because I love Curse of the Swine. But I really like this card. It's 1 mana, you destroy any creature, and then it can't be regenerated, which potentially could be relevant, and then they get a 3/3 Fog Lizard, which is just really funny. And very similar to that, I have Reality Shift, which Reality Shift is really great. You know, you exile your opponent's thing, they get to manifest. They might get something really cool with the manifest, but as I've found a lot of times, your opponent doesn't. So Reality Shift is a great card. And the last instant, and apparently I'm just lying all over today. I have 4 counterspells in this deck. I don't know why I said 2. I have 4. Rewind is really cool. I like this card a lot. You know, you can do this, untap, now you've got all that mana and you're able to just, you know, do whatever with that extra mana that you've just untapped, which is really cool. One of my personal favorite things to do is like rewind and then Blue Sun Zenith or whatever in the same turn, because I get to counter something, but then I get that mana back, which is really cool. So guys, that is everything. I really hope that you guys enjoy this deck tech. I love this deck. If you can't notice, it's just so incredibly fun. It's very different and very unique to all my other decks, and I just absolutely love it. It's probably my next project to foil. because like I said, I love this so much. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and I'll catch you in my next one.